What is going on, everybody? Chris NY Sports here, coming at you with another video, and we are continuing the series of the 2018-19 NHL standings predictions video. Now we went through the Metro. That video is up on my channel. I'll have a link, or I'll have the end screen, including that video, in the chat at the end of this video. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the Atlantic. And starting first with the Ottawa Senators. I have them finishing last because it is a complete and utter breakdown of this whole organization. Not just the team, but the owner. Nobody knows what their future is in their building, their fans. It's crazy what's going on. And I have them finishing in last because last year they had 67 points. And I'm going to give them 66 points this year. So 1 point less than last year. I look at this team, and your best player is Erik Karlsson, who you're probably going to end up trading. Craig Anderson isn't getting any younger. And for a defense that is diminishing, you know, their time to win was in 2017. And once Chris Kunitz scored in double overtime, it's been in shambles ever since. I look at this offense, and yeah, you have Matt Duchene, but I don't want to say it was a bust last year, but he was very underwhelming in the trade. That's for sure. You have Marian Gaborik, who his prime is well past him. You got Miguel Bodker in, was it a trade? Yeah, it was the Mike Hoffman trade. So you don't have Hoffman anymore because you had that whole situation with his wife with Erik, or his girlfriend with Erik Karlsson's wife. That whole thing. So Miguel Bodker is on the team, who he will help the team. But I mean, you have young guys like Magnus Piardi, John Gabriel Pajot, Max McComerick, but this team off the ice is just in shambles, and I can't see them doing anything this season. So I have them at 66 points, 8th in the Metro. Probably the worst team in the league. I'm not sure yet, but they're definitely down there. So yeah, Senators in 8th, last in the Atlantic with 66 points, moving up to 7th. Another Canadian team falls in 7th place to me, the Montreal Canadiens in the Atlantic. Which, if you're looking at the Senators, this is a rear view mirror image of the Ottawa Senators. The difference is, and this is why I have the Canadiens higher, you have a legitimate goaltender that will steal you games in Carey Price. However, I think his contract is dreadful for the Canadiens, and this is just his first year. This is the first year that contract being put into effect. And it's dreadful. It's just dreadful. Marc Bergevin, I don't know how the hell he still has a job in Montreal, but he does. They traded for Max Domi. I really like Max Domi, but we've seen this before with Jonathan Drouin and Shea Weber deal. And I don't think Max Domi is going to be any different. I think he's going to have high potential with this team, come in, and they're going to ruin him somehow. They'll probably have him become center like Jonathan Drouin. So I think, yeah, you brought in a big name, but you've done that for, what, the 3rd straight season? And you've gone down since, and you're declining. And one of your big players that you traded for, Shea Weber, he's going to be out until, I think they said, December or January. They also traded for Joel Armia, or signed Joel Armia, but somehow Joel Armia is on this team. I really liked him in Winnipeg. I thought that was a really big loss for Winnipeg. But Armia is a great depth player, and he was a perfect fit for Toronto, for Winnipeg, when you had Patrick Laine, Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler. The list could go on. You know, Nikolai Ehlers. He was a perfect depth player. He's going to have a bigger role in Montreal because this team doesn't have a very good top 6, especially not the top 6 in Winnipeg. You still have Brendan Gallagher and the whole thing going on with Max Pacioretty. That's going to also throw the team for a loop. He's going to likely be traded. He wants to be traded. I don't know how that can help a team that your captain, your best player, wants to leave. They re-signed Tomas Plekanec, but he's getting up there in age, and again, he's just a fourth, maybe third-line center. He's not what he used to be in a first top six forward, you know, point-a-game player. That's not it. And on defense, I mean, I can't even go into words about this defense. Carl Alsner, Jordy Ben, Jeff Petrie, David Schlemko, Shea Weber, all those guys are up there in age, aren't getting younger, and are very slow in skating. And I hate to say that, because if I put on skates and try to play, I would not be able to move. But these guys are up there in age. They're so broken down. They're so much more injury prone. You do have Victor Mete, who I do like, who I think is going to be a good player for the team. But it's not right now. It's definitely not right now. You have Carey Price as your starting goaltender, and you have Antti Niemi as a backup, which I think he's going to be playing a lot more, because Price, he's been more injury prone as well. And there are times where I watch him play, and he just, a lot of times when he was on top of his game a couple of years ago, when he was, you know, when he was in the conference finals against the Rangers before he got hurt, the year after that, even the year they made the playoffs and lost the first round to the Rangers, he made saves look so easy. But now, as I'm watching him more, I feel, I don't want to say laziness, but it just looks like all his interest and love for playing has stopped and slowed down, because the team he's playing in front of, or the team that's playing in front of him, is dreadful compared to teams that he has been on. So yeah, they're seventh. They had 71 points last year. I'm going to give them 70 this year. So the Senators are in 8th with 66. Canadiens have 70 points, 4 points higher, just because their defense is so slow and up there in age. With this day and age and speed as the #1 target in the league, they just won't be able to catch up. They're not. And I don't care how good Carey Price is. He's not leading into a wild card spot. And you know, he's still, even with a 70 points, I still have him stealing games for you. But he's just not what he used to be, because his team isn't what it used to be. So Montreal Canadiens, 7th place with 70 points in the Atlantic. The Detroit Red Wings, Hockey Town, is coming in 6th, in my opinion, in the Atlantic this season. They had 71 points last year. I'm going to give them more points this year, because there are bright spots to this team. So I'm going to give them 80 points on the season. I think it's safe to say that Henrik Zetterberg's not going to be. Henrik Zetterberg won't be in the opening day lineup. He won't be at training camp, and it's very likely that he misses the entire season. That will definitely hurt you. But you have so much young talent. Okay, you know, he's not on the younger side, but Justin Abdelkader, I really like his game. Andreas, happy to see you. That's how I say his last name, because that's exactly what it sounds like. He's going to be on this team for a long time, at least in the league for a long time, and he's going to be a very good player. Dylan Larkin, I think people overlook him. He just got a contract extension, I believe. People overlook him. Anthony Mantha, he's a guy that should put up 65 points, 70 points a season. Gustav Nyquist, he's on the other side. He's still doing good. Thomas Vanek, I think, could still help contribute in terms of the goal scoring. They got Evgeny Svechnikov. I don't know if he's playing with the team this year. I'm not positive. But just the fact that he's on your team, things are looking bright for the Red Wings. Things are looking very bright for the Red Wings in the future. Their defense, this is why they're not going to go that far, because their defense is older. They have Trevor Daley, Danny DeKeyser, Mike Green, Nicholas Kronwall, Jonathan Erickson. Those guys, like I was mentioning with Montreal, they're slower, and with today's hockey, with speed being the top priority, there's just no, there's not that much room. You could, maybe you could have one defenseman as a kind of a shutdown guy, stay-home defenseman. But when you have more than 2, 3 of those type of defensemen, it's not going to look well. And as you increase in age, the increase of injury prone and injury likelihood also rises. And in that, you have Jimmy Howard and Jonathan Bernier. From the games I've watched Jimmy Howard play against the Rangers, he's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. He's still a good goaltender, but when you put a good goaltender behind average to below average defense, that goaltender doesn't look as good with his numbers and just his performance on the ice. And that's going to happen to Jimmy Howard. But with all this being said, I think they still get the 80-point mark because of their offensive skill. They have a lot of young kids who played last year, so they've gotten experience. So it's not a question of can they perform. I think Anthony Mantha was kind of disappointing last year at times. He has to become more consistent. I think he will this season, but again, it just comes to that blue line. Much like Montreal, that they could still put up goals on a daily night, but the question is, can they keep the puck out of their own net? And I don't know if they can do that. So Detroit is 6th with 80 points in the Atlantic Division. The Buffalo Sabres are in 5th in the Atlantic, just missing out on the playoffs. However, last year they were a sure-cut team that missed the playoffs. They had 62 points. I believe that was worse in the league, which got them Rasmus Dahlin in the first overall pick in the 2018 draft. But let me tell you something right now. This team, I wanted to put them in the playoffs really badly. I have them 5th. I have them just missing the playoffs by a point or 2. I'm trying to remember my video last night with the Blue Jackets. I gave them 96 points, and they had the first wild card. I'm giving the Buffalo Sabres 94 points. So that is a tremendous increase of 62 points. I'm trying to do the math. I believe that's 32 points more. That's probably the highest I'm going to have. I look at this team. You traded Ryan O'Reilly, which at first instinct I thought he was a veteran leader that could help the younger kids develop. But he wanted out of Buffalo, and the return you got Patrick Berglund in return. You had they got somebody else. I forget. Vladimir Zaboka. Those are great returns. Sorry, my controller just dropped. You traded for Connor Sheary, who I really like as a depth forward on the team. You still have veterans in Kyle Poso, Jack Eichel, who's still young, but he's had time in the league. I think he's going to have a better year. He's going to have some more fire under him. That Buffalo's a better team now, and they're going to have something to play for. You have Casey Middlestat, that if you could get him in the lineup, he's going to only help the team. Sam Reinhart. You also traded for Jeff Skinner, who their offense is really good. If you could have Jeff Skinner, Jack Eichel, and Kyle Poso on the same line as your top 3, that's pretty darn good. And defensively, it's not looking that bad either. Obviously, you have Rasmus Dahlin, you have Rasmus Ristolainen. Those two are going to be your defensive pairing for the future, those two together. They got Matt Hunwick, who I think is a good fit for a bottom 4, bottom 2 defensive pairing guy. You have Nathan Beaulieu from Montreal, who's also another good depth forward. He could play more minutes, though. He's like a solid 3rd defenseman. Marcus Scandella from Minnesota. And as of right now, they have Carter Hutton as their goalie, and that's it. They don't have another goalie. And this is where I think the downfall happens. And a lot of the teams in the Atlantic, I'm kind of putting them in the same category. They have good offensive skill. They can put the puck in the net, but they can't keep the puck out of the net. And that's going to be their downfall. Because Carter Hutton, we saw last year, he was a good goalie. But now, over a course of 82 games, I don't know if he could be that well as a starting goaltender. And their defense, you could say they kind of lack the depth behind Dahlin and Ristolainen. But it's looking really bright. They just have to add some pieces on the blue line. And this team, I say by the 2019-2020 season, this is a playoff team. I have high hopes for them. I wouldn't be surprised if they make the playoffs as that second or first wild card this season. I really wouldn't. But I have them just missing out on the playoffs with 94 points. I have them missing out by 2 points. 2. That's one win. That's a one-win difference. So the Buffalo Sabres are 5th in the Atlantic with 94 points. And just outlasting the Buffalo Sabres and getting into the playoffs by a matter of 1 point, I have the Boston Bruins, which last year I actually had this team go into the Cup final. They were my pick. Of course, they fell short in the second round. They had 112 points. They're dropping off to 95 points this season. I still have them just making the playoffs. They're just outlasting the Sabres for that second wild card and 1 point behind the Blue Jackets for the first wild card at 96 points. But it's Boston in the playoffs again. Obviously, you still have your core players in guys like Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak, Krejci, Tuukka Rask, Zdeno Chara. And the reason why I picked them to win the Cup last year was they had such a good, healthy balance of veterans and young players that were exciting to watch, led by Charlie McAvoy. This kid is one of my favorite players to watch. He really is. Just amazing, a complete two-way forward, and he's only going to get bigger and stronger and better as his career goes on. But I have him down to 4th, and I have him dropping off a substantial amount of points because I think, guys like the older guys are getting a year older. Zdeno Chara, and I look at Tuukka Rask in net, and it's a tricky situation because he's obviously a very good goaltender, but it's either he's really on or he is really off. I feel like there's no real in between with Tuukka Rask, and he's got to be more consistent over the 55 games or so he's going to be playing if he can stay healthy. And I think with the veteran players kind of slowing down, that increases the role of the younger kids like Forsback Carlson, Donato as well, Jake DeBrusk, who I really like. I like all these kids, don't get me wrong. They are very exciting to watch, and this was, again, they were one of the reasons why I had them going, representing the East in the Stanley Cup Final last year. But I just think with an increased role and more pressure on them in a big city like Boston, I don't know if they're going to be able to handle it that well. And so I think this team still squeaks into the playoffs because I think they're just too good of a team not to. But I think the older players begin to break down more, and the younger kids show some more signs of weakness than they did last year. And with the veterans breaking down, that leads to more injuries. And of course, Tuukka Rask, who's not a question mark in net per se, but I don't put him in the elite category yet. I put him as a solid second tier, B overall goaltender. I don't have him. If you start a fantasy draft and you have, you can pick out of all the goalies in the league, I don't think Tuukka Rask is in your top 3, and I don't even know if he's in your top 5, to be personally honest. I know I'm going to have a lot of people that don't agree with that, but this is the fun of the video. So Boston squeaks in the playoffs at 4th, and again, they have some question marks at the forward position because they don't know what's going on with Rick Nash. He might be retiring. Riley Nash, you lost. So you lost some of your depth. So I have him at 95 points. Second wild card. Fourth in the Atlantic with 95 points. Are the Boston Bruins. And let's go into third now.
Okay, now we're at third. And only now, it took me this long to realize that I didn't have my Yeti microphone plugged in, and my commentary was coming through the Elgato. So I'm sorry about that, guys. I'll hear how I sound after the video. But in third are the Florida Panthers. I was going back and forth on either the Bruins third or Florida third, but the Florida Panthers just missed out on the playoffs last year. They had 96 points last season. Just missing out on the playoffs. They had an incredible run in the second half of the season after the tragedy that happened in the high school in Florida, the shooting. Alexander Barkov played out of his mind. I think he has the support to play like that again. So I have this team. I'll give them 103 points in the third place in their division. That's in the Atlantic. That's good enough for third and a divisional first round matchup. They won't have home ice, but nonetheless, nonetheless, they're back in the playoffs. Like I said, Alexander Barkov is going to play fantastic again. I think Nick Bukestad, he's got to get into his own, and he's going to play very well. They got Mike Hoffman. They traded for Mike Hoffman, which I think only complements a Nick Bukestad and an Alexander Barkov. Vincent Trocheck, who I really like. He's a really good two-way center. Frank Vetrano from Boston, one of the younger kids that I really did like watching. He's now in Florida. He's going to have a better season as well. Just one more year under his belt in the league. He's going to learn about the league more and how to play and only get better. Jonathan Huberdeau, he's going to be paired up with Barkov, and his game has already been elevated because of Barkov, but I feel like he can, without Barkov, have an elevated game, and he could become the leader of the team as well. Evgeny Dadonov, he's going to be a sleeper. I feel like a lot of people are going to overlook him, but he's going to shine this season, I truly believe. And then on defense, Aaron Ekblad, one of my favorite defensemen to watch. He's still very young, but he's improved so much, and he's only going to keep improving. He's got to get bigger and stronger, and he will. He's an offensive force to be reckoned with at the blue line, and he's also very good defensively. Keith Yandel, he wasn't my favorite on the Rangers watching him. He was too offensive. But he's a great offensive defenseman, and he creates so many good looks, good chances for forwards, and just whoever's on the ice with. You could tip pucks from him, you could get rebounds, you could screen the goaltender. Keith Yandel produces so much offense on a team that already has a lot of good, talented forwards and defensemen as well in that category. Too as well. They have Mark Piszczek, who I like too. I think a lot of people overlook him. They have Petrovic and Matthias. So they have a lot of good righties as well, which is important. So you could do 3 righties, 3 lefties, have an even split on the blue line. You have Roberto Luongo in net, who I think it goes without saying, his prime has passed him. He's up there in age. The injuries that have killed him, and who knows if he would have been able to stay healthy for the remainder of the season. They might have been in the devil's spot in the playoffs. And you would have seen a battle of Florida in the first round, which would have been amazing. I really want that to happen. They signed Michael Hutchinson, though. They got Michael Hutchinson. I think it was just free agency. I don't think they traded for him. And James Reimer. So if Luongo does go down, I think they can absorb the blow with James Reimer, who has kind of a rejuvenated career in Florida after what happened in Toronto. And Michael Hutchinson, I think, too, can hold their own. So I feel confident in the goaltending situation, even though Luongo's up there in age. I feel like they have the depth at goaltending to absorb the blow and get 103 points, get third in their division and return to the playoffs. And I could see them having a playoff run. They're going to be in a very tough division, though, but I still have them third with 103 points. And coming in at second in the Atlantic are the Toronto Maple Leafs, who had 105 points last year. They finished third in their division. And they signed somebody in free agency by the name of John Tavares. He's kind of good. But in all seriousness, no, this team offensively this season is going to be unbelievable. John Tavares, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Nazem Kadri, Patrick Marleau. It's younger guys like Kasperi Kapanen. It's going to be unbelievable. This team is going to be great. I have them in second, so that's going to be home ice for them in the first round. The last couple of years, they made the playoffs, lost in the first round. I actually believe a couple of years ago, when they made the playoffs in 2016-17, I thought they had a better year than last year. Obviously, in terms of points, they had a much better year last year. But I just feel like overall, they kind of were very sloppy in the first round last year. And I know that they have a lot of question marks of defense. We'll get to that. But their offense is just too good. A couple of names I forgot were Zach Hyman and Connor Brown. I feel like they're just too good offensively. And in terms of points, I'm going to give them 107 points, second in the division. They have like I said, they have the younger guys too: Kasperi Kapanen, Josh Levo, Connor Brown. They signed Josh Juris, who I think many people will overlook that signing. He could be a depth guy. He has played center before, and he could play the wing. He's a good penalty killer. That's just a solid depth player overall. But, of course, defense is where they have a lot of questions. Not a lot of questions, but they do have questions. And Jake Gardiner, who did not look good in the first round against the Bruins last year. Morgan Riley, he's been very inconsistent. Connor Carrick, his deal is not looking that great. It's like 7 years left on the contract. You have an older guy in Rob Hainsey. Roman Polak, who's just... there's a lot of Leafs fans that don't understand why he's still on the team. But they have a lot of younger kids as well on defense to be called up and play on a day-to-day basis. Another guy is Nikita Zaitsev. So they have righties and lefties. They have a good mix, and they have that kid Hall last year that they called up who played well in the couple of games he played. And you have Frederick Anderson to back you up with Curtis McElhaney in net. That does kind of raise some questions as well, because Anderson, he at times have been inconsistent as well. And I don't know if Anderson, God forbid, goes down with an injury. That is something serious and substantial. I don't know if McElhaney is the type of guy you want. I know they have a lot of younger goalies in the minors that have played well. I think they have Calvin Pickard, or they have a Pickard in there. But this team is really solid. If you look offensively, they're an offensive juggernaut. Yeah, they lost some veterans in Tyler Bozak and James Van Riemsdyk, but that only gives guys like Kasperi Kapanen a bigger role and bigger shoes to fill, and I think that they will fill them in Toronto, because I think they have started already to do that in the short, time that they've been able to play on the fourth line and getting scratched a couple of games. This is now they're going to be playing a lot more games, around 80, maybe possibly 82 if they stay healthy. They're going to really prove their value to this team, and that is going to lead them to a second place finish in their division, home ice advantage in the first round, and 107 points. And the Atlantic Division champions last year, and I have them going this year, the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't even know where to begin with this team. We'll begin on the offense. Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov. That's really all you need to say. This team is just loaded, and with the trade that they got with the Rangers last year, getting Ryan McDonough and JT Miller, and you were able to keep guys like Braden Point in that away from that deal, they just further cemented the depth that they have now. They have guys like Andre Palat that I remember coming up, and that there was a triplets line of Tyler Johnson, Palat, and Kucherov in the 2015 playoffs that knocked the Rangers out in the conference finals. Yanni Gort, he's going to be a real star in the league. I feel like he's going to be a very good player. And they still have some veterans. I love Alex Killorn's style of play, his game. He could give you a solid 35, 40, 45 points a year and be an absolute grinder. Ryan Callahan, same thing. But he does have a kind of a contract that the team would like to move. But offensively, this team is just another juggernaut. It's not even funny to think. And what separates this team from the Maple Leafs, in my opinion, is their defense. You have Ryan McDonough, Victor Hedman, Miguel Sergachev. That could be three. That could be one defensive pairing per line. That all lefties on the left side. You could team them up with Anton Stroman, Dan Girardi. You have Braden Kohlberg. They have Dachin, who's also a great player on defense. And of course in net they have Andre Vasilevsky. I mean, it's not even funny what this team can do. Yeah, you're going to have a course of the season where players are hurt or players are going through a cold streak and you're not playing well, but this team is too good. It's scary what this team could do for a full season with McDonough and Miller on the team. And it's going to be exciting to watch them light up the lamp on a nightly basis. I'm going to give them 116 points. That's 3 more than they had last year. And that's probably going to be the President's Trophy winning team. So I'll put it down. This is the President's Trophy. I think they won the President's Trophy last year as well. The Predators did. I'm sorry. But this year, the 2018-2019 Lightning are the President's Trophy champions with 116 points, leading the Atlantic. It's just, I don't even think I need reasoning, but I just gave the reasoning before. But it's filthy what this team's going to be able to do, and the lineup combinations, the different ways they could attack. They could beat you in that crazy 6-5, 6-7, a 7-6 shootout game, and they also could play defensively and win 1-0 or 2-1, 2-0. This team, there's no way that you can control this team on a nightly basis. Maybe, they have an off game, yeah, they get shut out, but that won't happen very often. It'll happen few and far between. So the Lightning are the best team in the National Hockey League this year, according to me, with 116 points, and they won the Atlantic. And if you guys like this video, leave a comment, subscribe, as I'm going to be coming out with more of these videos as we get closer and closer to the start of the NHL season. Training camp reports very soon. Then before you know it, preseason, and before you know it, it's opening night, October 4th. I cannot wait. And until then, I'm going to bring you guys with all predictions video. Until then, I'll keep doing the regular season and playoffs and all that good fun stuff. And next video is going to be starting the Western Conference. We'll start in the in the Pacific Division. So stay tuned for that. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.